Thank you so much for everybody here attending this second session, which is a panel. We will still be talking about data governance, one of the biggest topics today. And what we'll be focusing today is about navigating the data governance tightrope, balancing access, security, and compliance. So I'll be your moderator, again, Dalia Shanshal. Let me tell you just a little bit about the scope of what we'll be talking about. We'll be defining and describing. It's a segue of what we just discussed about the roles and responsibilities. But we'll be defining, describing the importance of data governance today. We will highlight too how it evolved and what do we mean by data governance tightrope. So stay tuned with us as we hear from experts in the field, share their insights and expertise around the topic. Let's meet our panelists. I'll start with Nick Theodorou, Director of Data AI, CAE, apologies, CAE.
Thank you, Dalia. Hi, everyone. So I lead the data in AI and digital product development teams at CAE. For those that may not be familiar of who CAE is, we've been around for over 75 years. We've evolved into a market leader and high-tech organization covering simulation and training for civil aviation defense. We also have an airline operations software business called Flightscape, powered by CAE. We are global, 13,000 employees, over 40 countries, 240 plus training centers. So as you can imagine, in the context of this discussion, highly regulated environment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Our second panelist, Amar, Narain, CIO and SVP of Pizza.
Hi. Thanks, Dalia. Yes, everyone should know what Pizza does. We're one of the largest pizzeria in Canada, and if you're not from Western Canada, we also own a second run called Pizza 73. And one of the unique things with us is we manage a turnkey operation where everything we provide to our franchisees. So as an organization, what we do is we manage data from our franchisee to our customers and all the way to the transaction that's happened at the store level. So it's a very, very centralized system.
Thank you, Amar. And I'd like to introduce Muskur Jahan, Director, Data Management and AI at Medcan. I'll leave the floor to you to introduce yourself briefly. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dalia. I'm a director of AI and data management at Medcan. Medcan is it's a healthcare, mostly in a wellness and preventative healthcare space. That's where we are kind of like a global leader. We take a very, very evidence-based approach in our services. We have location across GTA, mostly based in Toronto. As you can assume, like being a healthcare organization, there are we produce so many data on a daily basis. So for us in Medcan, data is just not a resource; it's more of a responsibility, and we take this responsibility seriously.
All right, Thanks. Thank you so much for the introduction. We're going to start right away with a kickoff question for anyone who would like to answer that. What are the most critical components of a unified framework, and where do most organizations stumble first? So
I can start?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So in terms of where our organizations stumble, I'll get to the framework after. I've been in tech for over 20 years. I've experienced multiple industries, and there's always a big focus on technology, right? That let's choose the technology, let's integrate the technology, implement it. There's a lot of emphasis put around there, a lot of budget and time. When the focus should be on the what's the purpose, right? What's the objective? What's the outcome we're trying to solve? What's the problem we're trying to solve? For which persona? Is it your external customer? Is it your employee? Through the employee experience. And then all of that is fueled by a data strategy. So do we have the data? Can we use the data? So we don't talk too much about that. So we need to work our way backwards. The three components that we have prioritized at CAE is one, the tight alignment with the internal entities that define these enterprise policies. So that's your legal, your compliance, your risk, your privacy, your cybersecurity teams. You need to be aligned with them. And all of us here as domain practitioners need to help them understand what are those risks and how do we mitigate them. Because we can go very far in terms of some of the internal functions panicking on, okay, AI, we don't understand that topic, how are we consuming the data? Two would be embedding a lot of these controls that come from these teams into our workflows, whether that's our platforms, like our dev experience platform, our data science workbench, our pipelines. We talk about privacy by design. You want to embed that as much as possible from a data management standpoint. There's also the data lineage, the metadata management, understanding if you have PII in your data estate, where is that? Is that controlled, secure, governed? The third part, and most importantly for me, is that alignment with business and tech and clear accountability on ownership of data assets or AI assets, right? There's a life cycle to these assets, whether you've deployed an MVP, a POC, or you've productized it at scale, that needs to be sustained and maintained. And there's a cost associated to that too. So that quality, the pipelines, etc., needs to be taken care of.
And we'll be getting more into that later about whether the technical team is the sole responsible about this, or are there any other stakeholders that need to, that play a role in that. Anybody else would like to answer this question? Maybe industry specific.
Sure. To me, it's when I look at unified data governance, just imagine that you're trying to assemble IKEA furniture, right? So in order to do that, first you need their instruction, right? So that's, to us, that's kind of like the policy. And then once you have the instruction, you need the right tools to assemble the furniture. To us, that's more of a technology, right? And the third component is you need someone to do that, right? You need someone to read those instructions and physically assemble that furniture, and that's the ownership that he was talking about.
Right.
So, most of the organizations, they trip over when they talk about data governance. I think it's, they treat data governance as a one-time project, right? But unfortunately, it is more of a very, I would say, living and evolving practice. So that's where I think the gap is.
Yeah, and if I could add, one of the biggest part for data governance is having siloed data, right? Everyone has their own, version of that data somewhere else.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day is, how do you know what's the true source of it? Where is it coming from? And it's a common thing with in many industries today. And having that unified data source and managing it and having that single source where all data are coming from is very, very important. There could be argument that, okay, certain areas doesn't have all the access of the data, and how do you manage that? So I think it's a very collaborative effort on how you do it, but at the end of the day, the governance part has to be mitigated in the back end and how things are being done. And auditing is a very, very important part because, like my friend here said, it's an evolving process. It's not a one-time done thing.
Yep. Right, thank you. And I see a lot of points here are going to be discussed also later. But what I want to switch on now, I mean, we've talked about the overall data governance challenges and how to build the framework. Now, data governance has existed. It's not a new concept. It's been there since the 1980s. But with the introduction of AI, what I'd like to ask the panelists is, where does AI governance intersect with traditional data governance? Are there any controls, frameworks, or is it the same or fundamentally different?
I could start on that one.
Thank you.
So at CAE, we defined an enterprise policy on the responsible use of AI, like most typical organizations. Then you want to operationalize that policy. You're assessing risk, right? So you're assessing, in data governance, you're assessing risks associated to data. In AI governance, you're assessing risk associated to the AI models. But where do these risk assessments start? They start by questions around what data are you using? What's the classification of that data? Is it subject to any regulatory restrictions? Like in our case, we have export control, ITAR, EAR 99, controlled goods, etc. And then what input are you giving the model and what output are you getting? And the output of the model has other considerations, right? So fundamentally, it starts with the data.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add on to what Nick just said, to me, it's more of a traditional governance. It's always there, and that obviously focus more on data. So to me, it's more of a like you want to making sure that the quality of input is there, right? But when you come to AI, now it becomes like you're adding multiple layers on the top. So now you need to ensure that the integrity of output is there. So that's where I think they are kind of like intersect.
But yeah, that's a good point.
And one thing I'm always adding, again, the unique part, the governance at the end of the day, the fundamental part is always there, whether it's AI or a regular business analytic tool. The difference between an AI part is understanding the training of that model, what output you're getting, like Muskur just said, and also the biasing, right? What's the ethics behind it? What information are we letting out? Is it too personal information? Is someone else getting information that they shouldn't, because it's not a traditional data model that you're pulling data. Now, you might be having data with multiple data models in the back end that you're correlating data and you're pulling data. So it's a little bit more challenging, but definitely it's a level where you do have to be a lot more careful in how you're governing those data.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so risk assessment and making sure the output is not biased while we train the model. Now, moving on to data governance and data governance in AI, and we know now the difference. Nick kind of touched on that at the beginning, and it's aligning with business goals and agile execution. Now, product and engineering teams, they want to get to work. They want to, go hands-on quickly. I don't know if you're a developer here and you want to finish your use case as quickly as possible. But sometimes data governance processes can be seen as a bottleneck or slowing down agile execution of a business or deployment and delivery of a product. Now, the question to the panelists is, how do you ensure governance isn't seen as a bottleneck, especially by product and engineering teams? And can you maybe share a practical way to align governance with changing business priorities in an agile environment, if you have something in mind? But mainly, how do we ensure governance isn't seen as a bottleneck to agility and business production?
I'll go again. This is the flow, so
yes,
I guess we're going to stick to the flow. Okay, in our digital product execution model, we want to have a multidisciplinary team approach, right? So starting with the use cases that have been defined and mapping the data sources, you want to start your governance there and work your way backwards on specific data sources to link to your objectives. Because if you just start, which are other struggles that organizations have tackled in the past, let's put in place data governance teams and let's start trying to govern the entire data estate. But then it's like a never-ending exercise. So taking an incremental and agile approach, embedding subject matter experts such as the data architects, security architects, cyber architects upfront in classifying the data, identifying the controls. Where is that data coming from? Is it mapped to certain data domains? Who governs those data domains? You have certain use cases and you want to build a data product that's secure, compliant, and governed and certified for those use cases, then you're going to start there. And you're going to make sure you have a business owner, a data owner, and a data steward monitoring that data quality index, right? So, and if priorities do change, which they do often, then you'll adapt and you won't be stuck in a situation where you've been doing a lot of process and not demonstrating that value.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that Nick just said, I do not want to repeat. Please practice them. But what I try to kind of look at this in a different angle. It is a perception. The perception is like, this is a bottleneck. In fact, I think we need to change that mindset to kind of convert them into a kind of like, instead of saying data governance, maybe we need to start saying data enabler instead of talking about policy, because, as a human being, like when someone is forced to you as a policy, you always first, you always take a kind of like a step back, like, wait a second, are you trying to force something on me, right? So let's change that term from policy to a workflow. So,
Policy to
workflow.
water flow.
Yeah, workflow. So now, if you change, try to change the perception, that might kind of like, trigger differently across the organization. Of course, what else you just said on the top of that.
Yes.
What I would say, in terms of, one of the things with what we do, we look at the value, and I think Nick touched on that as well, so I'm not going to repeat that again, but the value and which areas within the business need certain access to. Because at the end of the day, when you're creating a data platform, whether it's a data lake to work with AI or any type of analytics, it's a very collaborative effort from multiple areas of the business. And who will be using the data and how will they use the data? So that's an important part to first discover and know what you need to do before you get it. From an engineering standpoint, engineer could care less who's accessing the data. They're building a technology platform for the business. And once that platform is done, that's where the governance start putting it in place and who can access what and how you can do the auditing in the back end. So those are some of the areas we are looking at and how we're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution.
Sorry, Dalia, if I can add something to
please go ahead.
Amar. We talk about a lot of, product use cases. And there's an analytics organization which is fairly broad, and depending on your enterprise, decentralized teams that leverage data to create reports, right? And we never really question the value of those reports. Operational analytics, descriptive analytics, and all of that is fed by data and multiple data sources. Is it your data lake? Is it an Excel? Is it some database on the side that's left ungoverned? And what decisions are we taking on those reports? I mean, those are also questions that we need to ask our business to ensure that, hey, if you're developing a report, there needs to be a good structure. I think Daniel had it on one of his presentations at the end of the day yesterday on the storytelling around a report. Mm-hmm. So you want to see the link to your OKRs, the performance, the trends, and what actions can you take without anyone telling you the story, but really just by looking at the report, can you derive certain actions?
That's the perfect segue for my next question, actually, because this is the last section, and I'd like to touch about the culture and change management. So to just kind of take a little broader view, I think it was mentioned in the previous session, we all play a role in data governance. So we often think it only belongs to technology teams, but is that the case? So my question is, are there other teams, stakeholders, players in the organization that are also essential in owning and taking accountability over the data, ensuring access, security, reliability, compliance? Now, I know you've mentioned like some teams like the engineering, they just want to make sure the data's there and then compliance would take it. So there we have two different teams. But are there more than that, other than just the technical teams? And I think also, Nick, you had mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. And my second question, just to wrap it up, is how do you foster trust in data? And again, not just technically, but culturally, especially in large siloed organizations, like Amar had mentioned, the siloed organization. So, yeah, we can switch.
Sure,
side.
I'll go first.
There you go.
Yeah,
Change it up.
I'll give Nick a break.
I'm always in the middle.
Yes, so from a governance standpoint, I think, yes, IT has a lot to do with it, because at the end of the day, they're managing the data and the technology behind it, but the business has a lot to do with it as well, because I could give someone access to data, but what if someone from the business downloaded that data and create their own database, or started to do their own analytics and decide? There's a lot of rogue IT that's happening in an organization, whether we want to accept it or not. That's the fact. So those are things we have to understand what we're doing. And if you're taking customer data, like for Pete's Pizza, we have a lot of customer data. Who is accessing that and what are they doing with it? It's very, very important for us to understand things like that. So, excuse me. So if someone is accessing these data, we also need to know how they're accessing, when they're accessing. So that's where the audit trail comes in play, and how we do it. So for us, multiple responsibility is very important, and it keeps everyone in check as well at the same time that what's happening within the organization. And most importantly, everyone is aligned on what we're doing as an organization, not just IT is aligned with another department. So it's an organization alignment altogether.
And that kind of goes back to, data silos as well from different siloed organization. Anybody else has any input on this? I'm pretty sure Nick and...
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree at this point that governance, we have to make that this governance is everybody's business. It's not just any particular department. I think, if I look at things from a cultural standpoint, what I see, like as an IT or as a kind of like a data leader, we're not doing a great job storytelling to the rest of the business about this governance, because this is a dry topic to begin with, right? So how can we spice this up? How can we tell this story? Because in this room, like we all are somewhat like in alignment that this is important, especially in an AI world. But when we try to kind of like, how good are we to telling this story to the rest of the business, so that the business leaders understand that they have a skin in the game, and they have their input is significantly impact for overall governance. So I think that's where I think we need to, as a leader, need to work better on that as well.
Yeah, I'll kind of expand on what I said earlier about the relationship with your business stakeholders, right? It starts with their business outcomes, their business process. How will you digitize, automate their process? I mean, I heard in the morning how digital teams and IT or tech organizations have a hard time pitching investments for use cases, right? So it's the business that needs to pitch them, because it's the impact and outcome is related to their process. So the process owner is the data owner. that's the shift that we've been making at CE, is getting them to understand that. So yeah, that was an important element.
And the process owner is the product owner of the.
Usually, from a sponsorship standpoint,
Yeah.
there's a product management,
Yeah.
and from an execution, you have the
end-to-end.
product owner
Right.
taking care of the implementation of the
Right.
technology.
Right. Right. Okay. So we have 2 minutes left. We can go with Q&As, or we can go with a lightning round. So I'll see if there are any questions here. If not, we can go with a super quick lightning round, 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds for each. In one sentence, what would you say to a C-level leader who sees data governance as a cost center and not a value driver? And somebody mentioned that in a bit. We're not telling the story right. So
Maybe I can start.
yes, I think
Finally.
that was you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing is like, to me, this is more of a kind of like your insurance policy, right? If you don't have it, right, this policy will kind of make sure that it will protect yourself, your organization, and also your client, and it will help you to kind of scale responsibly. So without governance, I think that's how we need to kind of treat governance. That is, it's like insurance policy. Whether you like it or not, you have to have one.
If you get the minimal data governance right, it'll help accelerate your journey and outcome. Mm-hmm. And from an if they make a comment on the overhead part, it's not wrong. But when you look at their process and you say, okay, let's break down your process, whether it's the cost of goods sold or SG&A costs, you'll look at the process has a bunch of other overhead, which includes business overhead in that process. It includes licensing, it includes cloud, and it's support, vendor. So you break down the cost of that process, you look at the outcome, there is an optimization. At the end, the result is the governance overhead is minimal.
Yeah. And lastly, I would say is at the end of the day is the data that you have. They said data is king. And for us, we have a lot of data. It's how you use it. The business wants to use it. And with regulation, everything, you do have to follow those. So governance is the utmost important, and business do understand that, especially when it comes to a liability standpoint.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank you so much for all the insights for today. I mean, we've talked about a lot of topic about data governance, the tightrope about data governance, and then how to, merge it with business, agile, productive work, and as well as the importance in culture and change management. So the time is up for us. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask us afterwards. We're going to have a little break afterwards, and we'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much.